Some would rather be killed. Some preferred to kill themselves if they were faced with the possibility of being captured or of having to return to their owners if they found themselves hopelessly lost. This day, when I was 3 or 4 miles from home, in a very solitary part of the swamps, I heard the sound of bells similar to those which wagoners place on the shoulders of their horses. At first, the noise of bells of this kind, in a place where they were so unexpected, alarmed me. I therefore crouched down upon the ground under cover of a cluster of small bushes that were near me, and lay, not free from disquietude, to await the near approach of these mysterious bells. At length I heard footsteps distinctly in the leaves which lay dry upon the ground. A moment after, I saw come from behind a large tree the form of a brawny, famished looking black man, entirely naked, with his hair matted and shaggy, his eyes wild and rolling, and bearing over his head something in the form of an arch, elevated 3 feet above his hair, beneath the top of which were suspended the bells, three in number, whose sound had first attracted my attention. Upon a closer examination of this frightful figure, I perceived that it wore a collar of iron about its neck, with a large padlock pendant from behind, and carried it in its hand a long staff, with an iron spear in one end. It slowly approached within 10 paces of me and stood still. The black apparition moved past me, went to the water, and kneeled down. The forest re-echoed with the sound of the bells, and their dreadful peals filled the deepest recesses of the swamps, as a bear drank the water of the pond. At the sound of my voice, he sprang to his feet and at a single bound rushed mid-deep into the water. Then turning, he besought me in a suppliant and piteous tone of voice to have mercy upon him and not carry him back to his master. Rising from the bushes, I now advanced to the waterside and desired him to come out without fear, and to be assured that if I could render him any assistance, I would do it most cheerfully. As to carrying him back to his master, I was more ready to ask help to deliver me from my own than to give aid to anyone in forcing him back. My new friend now desired me to look at his back, which was seamed and rich with scars of the whip and hickory, from the pole of his neck to the lower extremity of his spine. The natural color of the skin had disappeared, and was succeeded by a streaked and speckled appearance of a dusky white and pale flesh color, scarcely any of the original black remaining. He told me his name was Paul, that he was a native of Congo in Africa, and had been a slave 5 years. He had then been wandering in the woods more than 3 weeks, with no other subsistence than the land tortoises, frogs, and other reptiles that he had taken in the woods, and the aid of his spear. He informed me that he had first run away from his master more than 2 years ago, after being whipped with long hickory switches until he fainted. That he concealed himself in a swamp at that time 10 or 15 miles from this place for more than 6 months, but was finally betrayed by a woman that he sometimes visited. I advised Paul to bear his more my fault. I advised Paul to bear his misfortunes as well as he could until the next Sunday, when I would return and bring with me a file and other things necessary to the removal of his fetters. On the following Sunday, having provided myself with a large file, which I procured from the blacksmith shop belonging to the plantation, I again repaired to the place at the side of the swamp where I had first seen the figure of this ill-fated man. On arriving at the spot where I had left him, I saw no sign of any person. The remains of the fire that I had kindled were here, and it seemed that the fire had been kept up for several days by the quantity of ashes that lay in a heap, surrounded by numerous small brands. I concluded that Paul had relieved himself of his irons and gone to seek concealment in some other place, or that his master had discovered his retreat and carried him back to the plantation. While standing at the ashes, I heard the croaking of ravens at some distance in the woods, and immediately afterwards A turkey buzzard passed over me, pursued by an eagle, coming from the quarter in which I had just heard the ravens. I therefore concluded that there was some dead animal in my neighborhood that had called all these ravenous fowls together. It might be that Paul had killed the cow by knocking her down with a pine knot, and that he had removed his residence to this slaughtered animal. Curiosity was aroused in me, and I proceeded to examine the woods. I had not advanced more than 200 yards when I felt oppressed by a most sickening stench and saw the trees swarming with birds of prey, buzzards perched upon their branches, ravens sailing amongst their boughs, and clouds of carrion crows flitting about and poising themselves amongst their boughs in a stationary position. Proceeding onward, I came in view of a large sassafras tree. This sassafras tree had many low horizontal branches, attached to one of which I now saw the cause of so vast an assembly of these obscene fowls of the air. The lifeless body of the unhappy Paul hung suspended by a cord made of twisted hickory bark, passed in the form of an altar around the neck and firmly bound to the limb of the tree. It was manifest that he had climbed the tree, fastened the cord to the branch, and then sprung off. The bells had preserved the corpse from being devoured, for whilst I looked at it, I observed a crow descend upon it and made a stroke at the face with his beak, but the motion that this gave to the bells caused them to rattle, and the bird took to flight. Ball. Page 277, 287.